The sun had barely risen over Verelion, a world of sharp cliffs and endless frozen plains, when the lake stopped moving. It was not just frozen on the surface, it was as if the water itself had vanished, locked in place by some impossible cold. The air above the lake shimmered with frost, and tiny crystals floated like snow in the thin morning light. No wind stirred. No birds flew. Even the distant mountains seemed to hold their breath. High above, on jagged cliffs of ice, Crythavor stirred. The dragon's scales reflected the pale sun, glinting blue and silver. Its wings spread slowly, casting a shadow over the frozen expanse. Crythavor had been alive for centuries. It had flown over lakes, mountains, and even stars that humans had not reached. Yet this lake had always been different. It was a sacred place, hiding a secret energy that even Crythavor did not fully understand. Today it decided that nothing, no creature, no wind, no fire, would disturb it. In a single sweep of its massive wings, the dragon exhaled a breath colder than any storm. The lake froze entirely, a solid mirror reflecting the cliffs, the sky, and the dragon itself. From a research station miles away, alarms blinked. Lights flashed across consoles, and the low hum of machinery surged to a scream. Dr. Ulrich Venn leaned forward in his chair, staring at the screen. His station was small, a cluster of metal domes connected by icy corridors, but it contained the most sensitive instruments in the sector. Ulrich rubbed his eyes. The readings made no sense. Temperature sensors at the lake had dropped to levels impossible for the planet's atmosphere. The surface area of the lake had increased overnight. And energy readings, tiny pulses deep beneath the ice, hinted at something alive, something very old, something dangerous. Ulrich did not panic. Most scientists would have called for reinforcements or evacuated immediately. Not him. He packed his equipment with precise, calm motions. Thermal suits, energy analyzers, ice probes, and an unusual pair of boots with built-in stabilizers. He left his station quietly, avoiding the panic of the other crew members who watched from a distance. They whispered about the frozen death, and the dragon that had done it. Ulrich did not whisper. He had always believed that fear was a poor companion in discovery. The journey to the lake was long. The ice beneath his feet crunched and groaned, sending echoes across the silent valleys. Cracks sometimes appeared, thin and jagged, only to disappear as the cold air hardened the surface instantly. He moved carefully, scanning the frozen expanse with sensors and scanners. The lake stretched for miles, unbroken and perfectly still, an alien sheet of glass that mirrored the clouds and cliffs above. Ulrich could feel the weight of time here. This was not a place humans belonged. And yet he did. High above, Crythavor circled. The dragon's eyes, like liquid sapphires, followed the human moving across the ice. Curiosity flickered in the dragon's mind. It had never seen a creature move like this, so small, so fragile, yet so determined. Ulrich walked steadily, boots crunching against the frozen surface, energy scanner humming faintly. He paused, crouched, and placed a small device on the ice. It emitted a soft pulse that spread in ripples, testing the ice's depth and flexibility. Crythavor watched the pulse break into intricate patterns, almost like the human understood the ice in ways the dragon never had. Ulrich stood and began moving again. Instead of walking carefully, he shifted his weight and skated lightly, blades under his boots slicing just enough to give him glide. The dragon froze in midair. Skating? Across a lake this cold, this thick, this deadly? Humans were not supposed to do this. They should slip, crack, or sink. Yet Ulrich moved with confidence, almost dancing, reading the tiny vibrations under his feet, adjusting with each step. Crythavor tilted its head. It had hunted creatures smaller than this human and they had run. But this human did not run. It approached the heart of the lake. Deep beneath the ice, Ulrich's scanners hummed louder. He could feel the energy pulsing like a heartbeat under the frozen surface. The lake had a secret, one that had been untouched for centuries. He crouched and tapped a button on his wrist device. A soft blue light spread beneath the ice, turning the frozen surface momentarily clear. Shapes appeared, lines of energy, small pulses, patterns that suggested a hidden object beneath. The dragon felt a stir of irritation. It had guarded this place for ages, but this human was reading it as if it were a puzzle to solve. Ulrich whispered to himself, more as a rhythm than a thought, adjusting his sensors and scanning deeper. The ice shifted slightly under the dragon's wings, making tiny cracks and snow spirals. Crythavor flexed its claws ready to strike, but something held it back. The human was not afraid. The human respected the ice, respected the space, and in doing so, commanded attention. Crythavor had never felt this before. It was old, powerful, immortal, but curiosity and caution now mixed with a strange feeling. The human continued across the lake, skates gliding over ice that should have been lethal. Auric's mind worked fast, calculating the energy patterns beneath, the structure of the frozen water, and the way to reach the crystal without breaking the surface. Crythavore followed silently from above, watching each careful movement. No other creature could have done this. And yet, here was a human stepping lightly over certain death, reading the frozen lake as if it were a page from a book. Finally, Auric stopped near the center. The pulse under the ice grew stronger, a faint light visible through the cracks. Crythavore hovered closer, wings slicing the cold air. It exhaled slowly, sending frost swirling around the edges, testing the human. Auric did not flinch. Instead, he crouched, extended his hand, and activated a small device that emitted harmonic vibrations. The ice shivered but did not break. The light beneath intensified. The dragon blinked. No human had ever come this far. No human had ever touched the lake like this. And yet, here he was, calm, fearless, and precise. Crythavore realized, with a shiver that ran along its spine, that it had been watching centuries pass, guarding a secret that only a human could see in a new way. The lake was not just frozen water. It was a test, a puzzle, and now, with one small human skater in its center, the first move had been made. The dragon folded its wings, watching, waiting, and for the first time in its long life, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. Auric whispered again, adjusting the sensors and scanning the final layer. The frozen lake beneath him was alive in a way no one had ever noticed. And the dragon above, massive and terrifying, realized that for the first time, it might have found a companion in curiosity, if not yet a friend. The ice had stopped breathing, but something else had begun. A slow, careful, impossible dance between human and dragon, between fear and respect, between cold death and brilliant life. And neither knew yet how it would end. Auric then moved carefully across the frozen lake, yet each step felt impossible. The ice beneath him was thick and black in some places, brittle and white in others. A wrong move could send him plunging into water colder than any human could survive. But Auric did not hesitate. His skates cut small, precise lines across the surface, and he shifted his weight constantly, reading the ice like it was alive. High above, Crythavore followed silently. The dragon's massive wings spread wide, casting a shadow that chilled the ice even more. It had never seen a creature move like this. Most beings ran, cowered, or froze in fear when faced with Crythavore's presence. But this human skated calmly, almost dancing as if daring the frozen lake itself to break. The dragon flexed its claws, preparing to intervene, yet something made it hold back. Curiosity perhaps. Or something older and stranger. Auric paused mid-lake, crouching to check a crack. He pressed a small sensor to the ice, which hummed softly, sending vibrations deep into the frozen water. The readings confirmed what he had suspected. The energy crystal beneath the lake was alive, pulsating with heat and light even under layers of ice. Most humans would never survive getting close enough to study it. Most humans would never even try. But Auric smiled. He liked impossible things. The wind shifted suddenly, sweeping frost across the lake in sharp lines. Auric adjusted his posture, leaning into the wind like a skater riding a strong current. Tiny fractures appeared in the ice near his boots, but he kept moving, each glide calculated, precise. Crythavore's sapphire eyes followed every movement, noting the human's balance and timing. No human had ever survived in conditions like this. The dragon realized something. The human was not just fearless. He was different. He understood the ice. Auric reached the center of the lake where the ice was thickest and crouched low. He pressed a device to the surface that sent harmonic pulses deep into the frozen water. The ice shivered in response, but it did not crack. Light shimmered beneath, revealing patterns in the energy flow surrounding the crystal. Auric studied them, mapping lines and currents with rapid calculations in his mind. Crythavore tilted its massive head, astonished. Humans were fragile, yes, but this one moved as if he belonged here, as if the frozen lake obeyed him. A sudden snap echoed through the ice. Auric froze, feeling a slight tremor under his boots. Crythavore let out a low growl and flapped its wings, sending snow swirling into the air. The dragon expected the ice to shatter, the human to fall, the energy beneath to explode. But Auric did not panic. He shifted his weight, gliding to a safer area, his skates scraping just enough to stabilize him. The ice responded to his movements, bending slightly without breaking. Crythavore realized something incredible. The human could read the ice in ways no predator ever had. Auric whispered softly to himself, adjusting sensors and scanning deeper into the frozen lake. Every pulse he sent revealed new information, new patterns of energy that had gone unnoticed for centuries. He crouched, touching the ice lightly with a gloved hand. The cold should have burned him, but his suit regulated temperature perfectly, and his focus kept his mind sharp. Crithivor's wings beat slower, curiosity replacing instinctive aggression. It had never seen patience and courage in a creature so small. The dragon circled lower, eyes fixed on Alric. There was danger here. The human was moving over thin ice, near fractures the dragon itself would not cross. Crithivor flexed its claws and exhaled a small cloud of frost to test the human. Alric did not flinch. He skated slightly to one side, letting the frost swirl around him, reading the tiny cracks it caused. He laughed softly. Not from fear but from exhilaration. The ice was alive, yes, but so was he. Suddenly, a deeper vibration shook the lake. Alric's sensors flared, warning of movement beneath the crystal. He crouched and adjusted the harmonic pulse, carefully matching the rhythm of the energy beneath. The ice glowed faintly, revealing the outline of the crystal. Crithivor's eyes widened. No human had ever interacted with the lake like this. The dragon hovered, silent and tense. Its breath fogged the air, but it did not touch the ice. This human was walking on death itself, and somehow he survived. Alric inched closer to the crystal, skating lightly, shifting his weight with precision. He spoke softly into a small communicator, recording every reading, every pattern of energy. He was calm, focused, almost serene. Crithivor realized that the human was not reckless. He respected the ice, the lake, and the energy beneath. He treated the frozen death around him like a puzzle to solve, not an enemy to conquer. The dragon had never seen respect like this from any creature. A thin crack appeared beneath Alric's skates, zigzagging quickly across the surface. The human adjusted instantly, leaning into the movement, gliding safely past it. Crithivor exhaled frost again, this time with more force, testing him further. Alric did not retreat. Instead, he skated toward the center, using the vibrations to predict the ice's weak points. Every move was calculated, every step deliberate. The dragon's amazement grew. This was not just survival. This was mastery of impossible conditions. Finally, Alric reached the spot directly above the crystal. He crouched low, setting a small device that emitted harmonic pulses. The ice shimmered and glowed faintly, almost like water in motion, though it remained solid. The light revealed the crystal below, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Crithivor hovered close, its massive body casting a shadow over the human, yet it did not strike. The human had done what no creature had done for centuries. He had approached the heart of the lake without breaking it. Alric straightened, standing tall on his skates. He gazed down at the glowing crystal beneath the ice. He had risked death, yes, but he had also learned something extraordinary. The frozen lake was not just ice and water, it was alive, and it had a rhythm that could be read and respected. Crithivor realized, finally, that the human's courage was not foolishness. It was understanding. For the first time, the dragon felt that the lake was not just a place to guard. It was a place to witness a human who walked on death itself, and survived. The wind swirled, the ice shimmered, and the dragon folded its wings slightly, curious but cautious. Alric had reached the center, alive and unharmed, but more than that, he had proven something neither the dragon nor the lake could deny. Humans were capable of impossible things. And Crithivor, ancient and powerful, watched in silence, realizing that this human had begun a story that the frozen lake would remember forever. Alric crouched over the ice, feeling the pulse of energy beneath the frozen surface. The crystal glowed faintly, like a heartbeat trapped in stone and water. He adjusted his device, letting vibrations flow into the ice, reading the energy patterns as if the lake itself were speaking to him. Each pulse carried information, temperature shifts, energy flows, subtle currents that hinted at the crystal's power. Crithivor hovered above, massive wings spread wide, eyes narrowed. It had seen centuries pass and guarded this lake through countless storms, yet it could not understand what this small creature was doing. The dragon flexed its claws, the ice shivering under the sheer presence of its power. Crithivor exhaled a mist of frost, sharp and biting, testing the human. Alric did not flinch. He shifted slightly on his skates, leaning into the wind and the vibrations, keeping his balance even as the ice under him moaned. He smiled faintly, knowing the dragon was watching, knowing that every movement of his was being judged. Yet he remained calm. Where the dragon saw danger, he saw a puzzle. Where the dragon saw death, he saw opportunity. Alric began a careful process, sending harmonic pulses deeper into the ice. The crystal responded, faint light spreading in intricate patterns. Krithivor's eyes widened. No one had ever approached the crystal without breaking the ice or shattering the energy field. And yet here was this human, standing calmly, guiding the flow of power with a simple device. Krithivor tilted its head, feeling a strange sensation it could not name. The dragon had always believed that power was control, that fear was survival, that death was to be avoided at all costs. This human challenged everything. "You're curious, aren't you?" Alric whispered softly, though the dragon could not hear him. Perhaps it understood anyway. "You've guarded this lake for centuries, yet you've never touched it. Why?" He adjusted the pulses again, letting the vibrations travel along hidden channels beneath the ice. The crystal's light brightened, sending pale blue patterns flickering like ribbons under the frozen surface. Krithivor's massive body shivered slightly as if the lake itself had responded to the human's words. Alric reached deeper with his scanning device. He mapped out the energy lines surrounding the crystal, noting areas of high stress and areas of calm. Most humans would have panicked at the thought of touching something so ancient, so powerful. Most humans would have shattered the ice in their attempt. Alric did not panic. He was not reckless. He understood balance, timing, and focus. Krithivor's gaze followed every movement. The dragon's mind, powerful and ancient, struggled to comprehend how a human could navigate danger so carefully. The wind picked up, howling across the lake, sending frozen shards into the air. Alric bent low, pressing the skates harder into the ice, maintaining perfect balance. Krithivor circled closer, exhaling frost and snow, testing the human further. Alric responded with calm shifts of weight, adjusting the pulses from his device to keep the ice stable. Each movement was precise. Each step avoided disaster. The dragon's heart, if it could be called that, beat faster with awe. It had never seen such skill. It had never seen a creature so small command forces so deadly. Finally, Alric stood at the exact point above the crystal. He activated a small harmonic emitter that sent a gentle, steady vibration into the ice. The frozen lake shimmered, almost as if it were breathing. Krithivor hovered close, its massive head bent low, eyes fixed on the human. It did not attack. It did not roar. Instead it watched. For the first time in centuries, the dragon understood that raw strength was not the only form of power. This human had something else, something the dragon had never considered: insight, patience, and understanding. Alric spoke softly to himself, more for rhythm than communication, adjusting the emitter. The ice around him glowed faintly, revealing hidden fractures and currents that had been invisible before. He traced the energy with his hands through the pulses of light, imagining the crystal as a map rather than a weapon. Krithivor's wings trembled slightly as frost spiraled downward. The dragon realized that it had been wrong about humans. They were fragile, yes, but their minds could bend even death to their will. "You see it too, don't you?" Alric whispered again, sensing Krithivor's presence more than seeing it. "You've watched for centuries but you never understood. This isn't just ice. It's life. It's a puzzle. And it can be read." He shifted slightly, letting the vibration pulses follow the energy streams flowing outward from the crystal. Krithivor's massive head tilted. It had never thought of the lake this way. It had never considered that someone might approach it not to steal, not to destroy, but to understand. The dragon flexed its claws again, letting the tips touch the ice lightly, creating tiny cracks that revealed the surface was not as solid as it appeared. Alric adjusted immediately, gliding a few steps to the side, keeping the pulses aligned with the energy currents. Krithivor realized the human was more than careful. He was adaptive, intuitive, and fearless. The dragon had known fear, but it had never respected it in another being. Now, watching this human skate across frozen death, Krithivor felt something new: admiration. Alric's device emitted a final, soft pulse. The crystal below responded with a gentle, steady glow, lighting up the frozen lake like veins of sapphire. The dragon hovered in silence, watching the human's careful movements. No one had ever reached this far. No one had ever interacted with the crystal without causing chaos. And yet, Alric did it calmly, methodically, almost as if he were dancing with death itself. Krithivor exhaled slowly, watching the pulses, watching the human, and realizing that power alone was not enough to command respect. Insight, courage, and patience mattered too. Alric had done what no dragon, no alien, no explorer had managed for centuries. He had approached the heart of the frozen lake and understood it, not destroyed it. The dragon's massive wings folded slightly, a sign of cautious acknowledgement. Alric straightened, skates balanced perfectly on the frozen surface. He looked up at Krithivor, sensing the watchful gaze. "I'm not here to fight," he said softly, voice barely audible over the whistling wind. "I just want to understand, and to save what can be saved." Krithivor's eyes flickered, ancient intelligence meeting human curiosity. For the first time, the dragon realized that perhaps humans were not just fragile creatures. They were something else entirely, something the stars had underestimated. The wind calmed slightly. The ice shimmered. And the frozen lake, long a place of silence and fear, held its breath again. A human had walked on death itself and survived. And Krithivor, ancient and terrifying, understood that this encounter was the start of something it had never imagined. Auric stood at the center of the frozen lake, skates digging lightly into the ice, watching the faint glow of the crystal beneath. He had studied the energy pulses for hours, learning their rhythm, mapping the hidden channels under the ice. Krithivor hovered nearby, wings beating slowly, watching him carefully. The dragon had never understood patience in any creature before, yet here was a human, small and fragile, moving with calm control over frozen death. Auric adjusted his harmonic emitter, sending a gentle pulse into the ice. The glow under the surface intensified, revealing cracks, currents, and hidden pockets of energy. He studied them carefully, knowing that one wrong adjustment could fracture the ice and send him plunging into the freezing water below. The lake seemed alive, reacting to every pulse, shifting slightly under his feet. Krithivor flexed its claws, curious and cautious. It had expected fear, panic, or weakness from humans, but this one displayed none. The human moved closer to the crystal, sliding across the ice with precision, every motion deliberate. Krithivor followed above, circling slowly, wings casting long shadows over the frozen expanse. Auric's device hummed steadily, mapping the energy streams, guiding them in ways that did not disturb the ice. He glanced at the dragon and spoke softly as if it could understand him. "I'm not taking it," he said. "I just need to study it safely." The dragon tilted its massive head, the first hint of comprehension in centuries of guarding the lake. Suddenly, a deeper vibration ran through the ice. The crystal pulsed stronger and thin cracks appeared under Auric's skates. He adjusted his weight immediately, gliding sideways to a more stable spot. Krithivor's eyes widened. The ice was old, brittle in places, deadly in others. Most creatures would have panicked, but Auric moved as if reading a familiar language. His small device emitted harmonic pulses that softened the stress in the ice, keeping it intact even under dangerous strain. Auric crouched, pressing a small sensor to the ice. He followed the energy currents beneath, noticing areas that were too fragile to touch. He mapped every line, every pulse, carefully balancing the energy. Krithivor's curiosity grew. It had always believed that only brute force or magic could command power like this. Yet here was a human using understanding, patience, and precision to control forces it could not dominate by strength alone. The wind picked up, sweeping frost across the lake. Auric shifted on his skates, letting the pulse flow with the rhythm of the ice. He adjusted the harmonic frequencies, balancing the energy of the crystal with the frozen lake around it. Krithivor exhaled frost, testing him. Auric smiled faintly, gliding smoothly to a better position, letting the dragon's frost swirl harmlessly around him. The dragon's wings beat slower, astonished at the human's skill and composure. For the first time, Krithivor realized that it could not rely on strength alone. This human had something different, a combination of courage, intelligence, and respect for forces the dragon had long feared. Auric moved closer to the glowing crystal, carefully lowering a small device onto the ice above it. The harmonic pulses intensified, making the ice shimmer without cracking. Light spread like veins under the surface, tracing energy currents that had been hidden for centuries. Auric whispered softly, almost to himself, but the words carried across the frozen lake. "It's not just power. It's balance. And balance can be learned." Krithivor hovered lower, watching every movement. The dragon had never learned from humans before. It had only seen destruction, fear, or defiance. Yet now it watched something that resembled mastery. And slowly, reluctantly, it began to understand. A sudden tremor shook the ice. Auric adjusted immediately, shifting his weight, letting the pulses flow through the cracks and fragile areas. The ice shimmered, but it did not break. Krithivor flexed its claws, amazed. The human had managed to move over frozen death without shattering it. He had found the rhythm of the lake and matched it perfectly. It was not magic. It was not force. It was understanding. Auric stood at the center again, skates balanced, eyes on the crystal below. He extended a hand and activated a small scanner, sending waves of energy into the ice that mirrored the crystal's own vibrations. Light spread like water under glass, revealing the hidden structure of the frozen lake. Krithivor's massive body moved closer, curiosity now mixed with awe. The dragon realized that the human had done something it had never seen in all its centuries of guarding the lake. He had interacted with the crystal safely, without breaking the ice, without taking it, without angering it. The wind calmed, leaving the lake eerily still, almost peaceful. Auric adjusted his device, recording every pulse, every pattern. Krithivor's gaze followed him, slowly relaxing its stance. The dragon exhaled a soft mist of frost, but it no longer felt like a threat. It was a cautious acknowledgement. This human had walked on death itself and survived, and more than that, he had respected the lake, the ice, and the ancient crystal beneath. Auric spoke again, voice soft, steady. "We can do this without breaking it," he said. "We can learn from it, not destroy it." The dragon hovered, massive wings folding slightly, considering the words. No human had ever approached with such care, such focus, such calm in the face of danger. Krithivor's long life had been spent guarding the lake from intruders, but now it realized that this one was different. Perhaps humans were capable of more than it had believed. Auric continued to study the ice, gently sending harmonic pulses into the crystal, guiding the frozen currents. The ice glimmered like glass, solid yet alive. Krithivor remained above, wings outstretched, watching. For the first time, it felt something it had not felt in centuries: hope. Not for itself, but for the fragile human before it. Together, without force or violence, they had preserved the frozen lake and revealed its secret safely. The sun dipped slightly, casting pale light across the ice. Auric adjusted his device one final time, smiling faintly at the glowing crystal beneath. Krithivor hovered, silent but attentive, understanding at last that power was not just destruction. It could be respect, understanding, and precision. And in this frozen moment, human and dragon shared a rare balance. The ice did not shatter. The crystal remained safe. And something new had begun, a fragile trust between ancient power and human courage. The lake was quiet now, the wind barely stirring the frozen surface. Auric Ven stood on his skates, staring down at the crystal beneath the ice. Its glow pulsed slowly, evenly, as if it were breathing again after centuries of silence. Krithivor hovered above, wings folded slightly, eyes fixed on the human. The dragon had watched countless beings come and go, but none like Auric. None had approached the lake with such care, such respect, such courage. The dragon felt something it had never felt before: trust. Auric adjusted his device one last time, sending a gentle harmonic pulse into the crystal. The ice shimmered like glass, but it did not crack. Every crack, every weakness, every hidden current had been studied and accounted for. The lake had survived and the crystal remained whole. Auric smiled faintly, feeling a thrill of accomplishment. He had walked on death itself and lived, not because he was stronger than the dragon, not because he was luckier, but because he had understood the frozen world around him and moved in harmony with it. Krithivor tilted its massive head. The dragon had always believed that humans were fragile, reckless, and short-lived. Most were, but this one had shown something the dragon had never seen: patience, intelligence, and respect for forces far greater than himself. Krithivor flexed its claws and let out a soft hiss of approval, a sound that carried across the lake like wind over glass. It was not a roar of fear or aggression. It was acknowledgement. The human had earned it. Auric skated slowly back toward the edge of the lake, his movements careful but confident. He had learned enough to copy the energy patterns of the crystal without removing it. This knowledge could save his colony on a nearby moon, prevent disaster, and bring hope to thousands of humans who relied on him. He glanced up at Krithivor and whispered softly, though the dragon could feel the meaning without words, "I am not your enemy. I only wish to understand and help." Krithivor's wings beat once, slowly, almost as if nodding. The dragon exhaled frost, a gentle swirl that danced over the ice and sparkled in the pale light. For centuries, Krithivor had guarded the lake, feared by everyone who approached it. Now, it realized that humans were capable of something different. They were not always violent. They were not always reckless. Some, like Auric, could respect the unknown, move carefully through danger, and survive where others would fail. Krithivor's sapphire eyes followed the human as he skated, small and fragile, yet full of courage. Auric crouched near the edge of the lake and placed a small recorder on the ice. He spoke softly, documenting everything: the energy currents, the pulses of the crystal, the ice's hidden structure. Krithivore hovered above, watching intently. No dragon, no alien, no being in the galaxy had ever studied the lake so carefully. And no human had ever survived it with such skill. The dragon felt a strange warmth it could not name. Perhaps it was hope. Perhaps it was respect. Perhaps it was the beginning of something new. The sun began to dip behind the cliffs, casting long shadows over the ice. Auric finished his recordings and skated toward the shore. Krithivore followed, gliding silently above. The dragon's massive wings stirred the air, creating a gentle wind that lifted snowflakes and scattered frost across the frozen lake. Auric moved carefully, feeling the rhythm of the ice beneath his skates. Every step was precise. Every motion deliberate. Krithivore realized that this human had mastered something far older and more dangerous than brute strength: understanding. By the time Auric reached the edge, he had memorized every pulse, every vibration, every pattern beneath the ice. He looked back at the lake one last time, sensing the presence of the dragon above. Krithivore watched him with a quiet intensity, wings folding, eyes sharp. The dragon had learned something unexpected from this fragile human. Humans were capable of seeing the world differently, of solving problems without destroying them, of walking carefully over death itself and emerging alive. Auric activated a small device that stored the energy patterns of the crystal. He did not remove it from the lake. He had no desire to steal it. His goal was understanding, not possession. Krithivore lowered its massive head, letting the human pass safely. For the first time in centuries, the dragon felt the frozen lake was no longer just a place to guard. It was a place to witness, to learn, and perhaps to share. The ice did not shatter. The crystal remained safe. And the human had changed something fundamental in the dragon's mind. The stars above Verelion began to appear as twilight fell. Auric skated slowly toward his shuttle, the ice beneath shimmering in soft blue light. Krithivore followed, circling once, then rising higher into the sky. The dragon had seen civilizations rise and fall, wars fought and lost, treasures stolen and destroyed. Yet this human had taught it something new. Courage could be calm, power could be gentle, and survival could come from respect rather than force. When Auric boarded his shuttle and prepared to leave, he looked back at the lake. The crystal pulsed faintly, almost as if it had learned to trust him too. Krithivore watched from above, massive wings spread, a silent guardian over the frozen waters. The dragon had guarded the lake for centuries, but now it realized that humans could be allies, not threats. And perhaps one day they might walk together, solving impossible problems across the galaxy. As the shuttle lifted into the sky, the frozen lake glimmered beneath, reflecting the stars. Krithivore circled once, then disappeared into the clouds. Auric looked out of the window, feeling the weight of what he had achieved. Humans were fragile, yes, but they were clever, brave, and capable of extraordinary things. In the silence of the frozen lake, with a dragon watching from above, one truth had become clear. The galaxy underestimated humans at its own risk. Auric whispered softly to himself, a quiet smile on his face. "We are small," he said, "but we can do the impossible." And somewhere above, Krithivore's eyes reflected the stars, remembering the small human who had walked on frozen death, studied the crystal, and left the lake unbroken. The dragon had learned to see humans differently. And the stars themselves seemed to take note, remembering that in the galaxy, courage and understanding could shine brighter than fire or frost.